So, um, I have happened to watch a movie about a band I had never even heard of before. So, I mean, just one of those things. I did listen to a few of the songs before starting. I mean, it's not like they didn't have them in the movie itself. I don't know when it comes to this sort of thing. I mean, if it was a documentary, I suppose I'd rather not watch it if I had never heard of the band at all. But it's a movie, so it's sort of a different thing. It's more accessible, I suppose, than a documentary. But sure enough, if one is watching a documentary, at least rudimentary knowledge would be sort of required, especially if it's a band, you know. So anyway, yeah, but I was interested to know, I mean, what, sort of times were like and such back then, despite knowing pretty much nothing about it. But, so I have watched Spike Island. I'm not even sure where Spike Island is. Yeah, and it's sort of a difficult thing. I mean, it's obviously it's mundane in a sense. It depicts mundane stuff, but otherwise, um, the whole thing. I mean, it's not that easy to and the slang is certainly not easy. The slang is incredible. I had to look up like a gazillion words. Yeah, because you just totally not never never been there. Yeah, so it does tackle some heavy subjects, but there's also a bit of humor. Like for example, when they lose one of their friends and they say he couldn't have gone far, look for one of the hats, and suddenly the camera goes into the mass of people with this same hat. That's a bit of humor, I guess. It's not one of those laugh out loud humor, but it's subtle humor, so I suppose. Yeah. But other than that, it really doesn't. It's quite grim. There's domestic violence. There's medical issues. There's um, has issues to do with poverty, I suppose. There's a lot of this sort of stuff. Yeah. But ultimately, I suppose you could sort of see it from their perspective. Despite all of this, they still want to go to this place and sort of forget for a bit, and sort of works in a way, sort of like this minor sort of comedy that there is sort of there despite everything else that's happening. Um, I mean, essentially, it's a movie not as much about this Stone Roses band. Barely anything is said about them, so it's more about these other characters from this other band. I really have no idea if they were successful. I need to research that, but anyway, yeah, as it is, it works as a drama. It sort of does, I suppose. Yeah, it's a gritty movie, shall we say? Obviously, yes. I suppose it is trying to reflect the times. Whether it succeeds, I suppose, is another matter. Does it though? Hmm. I mean, generally, I know very little about this era or this band or even this sort of music or this genre in general. So obviously, I'm not exactly qualified to say much. But it seems authentic enough. This is, I suppose, why they made it gritty, because I'm assuming it was really gritty. I mean, if it wasn't, and somehow they made it gritty when it wasn't, then obviously it would be absurd, but I'm assuming it is. The only other movie I ever watched that was somewhat similar and set around the same area was something about Soul. Forgot exactly. Yeah, Northern Soul, I think it was called. Yeah, and it's been years though, so I mean, generally I forgot about it. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I think that it was somewhat similar though. I don't think this music is so-called soul. I think I don't think it's even the same sort of soul as the music in the US, which is related to jazz. No, I think it's a different sort of soul. I don't quite remember. So I do like this sort of music though, but I noticed the lyrics are very vacuous. Like, they have a song, yeah, about wanting to be adored. I mean, what nonsense is that? I think they would have done better if they just played the music and left it at that without saying anything. I mean, it's a bit too desperate for them to just go on about, oh, adore me, adore me. Um, but whatever, I suppose. I don't know. Lyrics are weird, generally. But it's one thing to have, like, Marilyn Manson has weird lyrics, but they're at least they're sort of an attempt at being symbolic and ob- obscure, I suppose. Whereas this is quite simplistic at best. Not at all obscure, really. It's just, oh, adore me. That's pretty much it. And singing it on a stage is a bit pathetic, in my opinion. I mean, just other than that, though, the music is quite interesting, I suppose. It's not too bad. I think it would go better if it was symphonic, though, as opposed to lyrical music. But of course, they did go with lyrics because why not? Otherwise, so it does blend well with the music itself, with the symphonic. But yeah, and if you look into the lyrics, so they're not quite impressive, in my opinion. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. Just why would anyone go to a concert for any kind of music? I'm not entirely sure. I have never personally been to a concert. I have never felt that strongly about a single. So I mean, otherwise, just as a movie, so it sort of works on, I mean, on its own. But obviously, it's with the music added, adds an extra thing to it. I suppose it's yeah. So it's not like it's but on its own, without music, or at least some obviously every movie has music generally, but if it wasn't centered on music and it had everything else, it would still be the same sort of movie. But I don't know, it would miss something, I suppose. Not that the music is very much a central character, not like, say, Green Book, which I watched recently. That's much more central there. Central, I mean, yeah. I mean, sure, there's supposed to be a band as well, so I suppose it could be, but obviously it's not as there isn't such depth to it. And anyway, there's also an issue of their ages, I suppose. They're not quite as well established, and they're not pianists anyway, so it's a different sort of music, obviously. The entire thing is different anyway, and uh, but yeah, it's funny how quickly a fight can break out, though, isn't it? It's of course nothing in comparison to Goodfellas or anything. That's a constant thing, yeah. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, the fight wasn't as long as the concert, but the concert wasn't too long either, which sort of establishes the fact that it's not about them as such, even though it is, it's very much entirely themed on this band. Posters, their name everywhere on the walls. Like, I had never heard of it before, but sure enough, I heard of it now and read it and being talked of. But other than that, I mean, I still know very little about them. And what I've read on what I've the little I've read about them, they didn't seem to be very successful. Apparently, after this gig of theirs, they really did not do much at all. They tried to reunited apparently about a decade ago, and it failed again. So not very impressive. Kind of like the tennis champion who was once on top of the world and then couldn't even make a comeback. It's kind of one of those unfortunate things, and when they try to make a comeback, it's a bit pitiful that they fail so much in the end. But anyway, it's trying is still all that matters, I suppose. So yeah, I mean it's as a movie it sort of works. It has some pathos as well, I suppose, but and some what Hollywood normally does have and such, and otherwise it is a bit anticlimactic though, considering that it's supposed to be about this concert, and then the most they go to is in front of a green gate. I mean, they do show them for a few seconds. They do show the band, but not very long at all. Okay, in comparison to how much they're talked about and written about, they really are very transient, very evanescent. Uh, so it is anticlimactic in that sense, but then yes, it does seem to be about the characters themselves, even though they're supposed to be fictional. So I'm not entirely sure why they focus so much about them. But then again, I suppose it's sort of a good device to focus on fiction more than I suppose, I don't know, just yeah, kind of like they did it in Rose of Versailles. They focused on Oscar, a fictional character, and they still had the focus on historical characters, but mainly it was so it's sort of a device where the attention is shifted to something that wasn't real, but the reality is still there in the background. Sort of works sometimes, I suppose it's one of those things. A blend of history, reality, and fiction, or fantasy, as it can be called, but it wasn't very fantastic in this sense. It did try to reflect reality still with the fiction, so it wasn't, I mean, fantastic, in the sense that, it was entirely fictitious. I'm assuming there are figments of the fiction, but otherwise, yeah. But yeah, it's categorized supposedly as a comedy. Yeah, I didn't quite see it mainly as a comedy. I mean, yeah, I think it's more of a drama than a comedy. Much more of a drama, I think. But I mean, there are comedic elements, but it's more like a sub-genre best with regards to comedy. But I don't know. I guess when it comes to, I mean, I don't know. When it comes to comedy from the UK, it's not quite comedic in any conventional sense, or at least sort of. I mean, I guess you could have slapstick, but it's not quite. I don't know. And then there's Pythons, which is more absurd comedy, surreal comedy. This is more, I guess, mundane comedy. I don't know if you could call it that. I liked how at one point he ended up going to Wigan because it sounded like Witness somehow. Not sure how it does. I mean, just the first couple of letters. Doesn't even have 6 letters, so yeah. But otherwise, I mean, just there weren't that many comedic moments. Just there are a few maybe. It's kind of funny, sort of meta funny that apparently it was written by this Chris Kogel guy, and he apparently played what did he play again? He played, I think, the guy in the van. So I'm not entirely sure why someone would write the part as someone so dejected, in a sense. So yeah, but it's more of a drama, I think, rather than a comedy. But yeah, despite this being a fictional account of the concert, apparently there aren't any recordings at all. So for all we know, it's a realistic account. Who knows? Yeah, and yeah, apparently some critics think it's a cliched story, and yeah, I can't quite disagree with it. With that, I mean, it is cliched, for. But then again, I don't know. Maybe I mean, because it's fictional, right? I don't know why they had to include sort of, you know, the pathos aspect, because I mean, if it was really supposed to be a comedy, somehow so-called comedies from the UK always have a dark element, almost always, and I don't personally consider that comedy. So it's, I mean, it wasn't essentially, that part of the comedy. It was just a more drama than comedy, but that is, I assume, what one might think of as cliches in a sense, and it really didn't quite fit there. But I don't know. Some people seem to think that um, that kind of denouement is possibly needed, but it's not really. It wasn't. It's one thing for them to hitch a ride in the undercarriage of a bus. That's perfectly what they presumably do if they've run out of gas and have no other means of transport. And obviously, in a movie, just walking it all the way wouldn't quite be the same thing. So, in reality, though, finding a bus that happens to have stopped and that goes in that direction must be quite rare. I mean, it was even just there in front of them somehow. Must be some luck if it ever happened for real. So obviously that indicates that it's not realistic in that sense. But anyway, this is just a movie for what it is. But yeah, they could have included, I guess, more comedic scenes. It isn't as much, as such, very comedic in the sense. It's more of a musical drama, really. But yeah, personally, I mean, not knowing the local slang and such, it was more of a yeah, it has a slang drama. That's a genre. I'm not sure it is. I don't think it is, but it was very difficult to understand. Very, very. I mean, there must be quite some words that I didn't quite get, but I did try to research many of them. By research, of course, I mean simply googling them. So there were so many. Was double dropping that was used for some reason I've never heard of. There was some guy called Jolly Deacon that somehow was left in the middle of a sentence with regards to tickets. I'm not entirely sure why. Apparently he was some sort of writer. It was skinning up. I'm still not entirely sure what it is about because um, whatever the definition was given here, well, it didn't quite fit in with what was happening in the movie, so I'm not entirely sure what they meant there specifically. I even once ended up googling Ian Brown sauce, and that just indicates how much I don't know about this band. It's kind of funny, I suppose. I suppose they were just simply adding in, the one of the band members' name because there is a brown sauce, so they just simply added, his first name in there. Yeah, there was something cliche that I still have no idea what it is because it doesn't quite seem to think it's a word here. Yeah. They used it as niche and cliche, and apparently, I think niche means nothing or something. I really had never had any idea. So just one of those things. There was also some sort of box being used as some sort of slang term as a verb. I'm still not entirely sure what they meant, but I could kind of get the gist, I suppose. There was Dibble as well, I've never heard of before. Apparently slang for police. I've no idea about any of this, honestly. There was another one, Nost. I'm assuming it comes from nausea. I have no idea really though. This is the thing. So this does say that, cause one to feel disgust, etc. But it didn't seem like it was quite used like that. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it was. It was quite opaque, you know. It's almost like another language. I mean, it's not like I cannot understand the language, but not quite this much slang. Quite a lot of slang. There was another one, mither. Apparently, simply means to bother someone as a verb. Yeah, I'm not sure why they don't simply use bother, but never mind. Uh, yeah, a weird shortened, I guess, slang term for a hospital is a hossie, apparently. I really couldn't figure it out. How do these words even form? How do you go for, I suppose I can sort of see, yes, hospital, yeah, hossie, yeah, whatever. Just, hossie makes it sound almost endearing, Phil. It's not quite endearing when you talk of a hospital. Never mind. I even ended up looking up a bar chords. I'm not exactly a guitarist or an aspiring one or anything, so I had no idea what they were. Apparently, from what I can understand, just for guitar, yeah. The chords for just a guitar. So there we go. Bar chords. There was another slang term. Plucky, I had never heard of before. Another one, skids. Never heard of either. Another one, remmies, that I still cannot seemingly translate here because there's nothing online. Although it seems to be some sort of insult, as used in the movie. And this is an incredible amount of slang, right? You almost need to be from the area to understand all this. There's another one, Spackers, yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, another one, jibbing. Wow, right? I mean, this is another one where the definition online doesn't have anything to do with the usage in the movie, because it's something to do with snowboarding here, but obviously not movie there at all. Yeah, I mean, even Urban Dictionary here doesn't have. It only seems to have the snowboarding term. Yeah, I think. Handrails or something, I don't know. But seems to be something about telling each other something. That's what they seem to say in the movie. Tubing. And there's another slang term here, tube. I mean, obviously I know what a normal tube is, but I had no idea tube was some sort of insult apparently. But yeah, never mind. Yeah, that's and the first slang term they used is I googled bobbins. What the hell is all this? It's almost like I don't speak the language, honestly. Bizarre. Bobbins. What? How could bobbins mean worthless? Like, it makes no sense. Where does it come from? Bobbins sounds like some jolly uncle or something. Also, apparently it's from Lancashire, but this is Manchester. So I know the sort of neighbours, but yeah. So yeah, really weird. So that's another thing. I mean, I don't necessarily think class of movies just because they have so much slang. You know, gangster films tend to have slang as well. So this was somewhat similar. They used nicknames for people and such as well. It did have less violence though, but it did have some still. So I don't necessarily detract, but it's very difficult to keep up with a movie and to truly enjoy it when there's so much, really. I do end up enjoying that which can be more easily understood, essentially. Uh, yeah, otherwise, it was still sort of an enjoyable story, but not really. I don't know, mediocre at best. But yeah, whatever.